She was forced to choose between two mates. Then the disguised Alpha King chose her as his mate. Elena Marsh had spent her whole life feeling like a shadow in the Thornwood pack. She was not the strongest fighter, not the most beautiful girl, and not the daughter of anyone important. She simply existed, quietly, at the edges of pack gatherings, watching everyone else live loud, exciting lives, while hers stayed small and unnoticed. That all changed on a cold autumn morning, when she woke up with a strange, tugging feeling in her chest. It was warm and unfamiliar, like a string pulling gently at her heart. She had heard about mate bonds her whole life, how a wolf would suddenly feel drawn to another person, as if fate itself had tied them together. She never expected to feel it herself, and she certainly never expected to feel it twice. The first pull led her to Marcus, the pack's rising beta in training. He was tall, confident, and admired by everyone. When their eyes met across the training field that day, Elena felt her whole body hum with recognition. Marcus smiled at her, warm and familiar, like he had always known this moment would come. It made sense. He was exactly the kind of wolf everyone expected her to end up with, if she ended up with anyone at all. But only a few weeks later, a second pull appeared, quiet and different from the first. It came from a stranger named Dorian, a drifter who had recently arrived in Thornwood territory. He kept to himself, spoke little, and never seemed to want attention. Yet whenever Elena was near him, her heart raced in a way she could not explain. It was not loud or obvious like the pull toward Marcus. It was deeper, quieter, and somehow more real. Elena told no one at first. She was afraid people would think she was confused or greedy, wanting two mates when most wolves were lucky to find one. But rumors spread quickly in a small pack, and soon everyone knew. The elders were baffled. A double mate pull was almost unheard of, and no one could explain why it was happening to her. The pack council saw an opportunity in the confusion. Marcus's family was influential, and a union between him and Elena would strengthen alliances with a neighboring pack that had long been drifting apart from Thornwood. The elders began pressuring Elena, gently at first, then more firmly, to formally accept Marcus as her mate. They told her it was her duty, her destiny, the sensible path for someone in her position. Elena wanted to feel excited about it. Marcus was kind to her, in his own way. He complimented her, walked beside her at gatherings, and spoke about a future filled with comfort and security. Yet every time she pictured herself choosing him forever, something inside her resisted, like a small, stubborn voice whispering that this was not right. Dorian, meanwhile, kept his distance. He never approached her directly, never spoke about the bond between them, and sometimes looked away quickly whenever their eyes met. Elena told herself this meant he did not want her, that perhaps the pull she felt toward him was some kind of mistake or malfunction of nature. Still, the ache in her chest whenever he was near refused to fade. One evening, walking along the edge of the forest to clear her mind, Elena came across a small group of traveling emissaries resting near the border. They were quiet, well-dressed, and clearly not from Thornwood. Curious, she offered them water and a place to sit by the fire, as was proper hospitality among wolves. As they spoke, one of the older emissaries mentioned they were searching for someone important, a leader who had gone missing from his duties for several weeks without explanation. He described the missing leader in careful detail, a tall wolf with quiet eyes and a guarded manner, traveling without guards or fine clothing, blending in wherever he went. Elena's breath caught in her throat. The description matched Dorian perfectly. She asked, as calmly as she could, who this leader was. The emissary hesitated, then explained that he served the Alpha King of the Northern Territories, one of the most powerful leaders among all the packs. The king had left his court weeks ago without warning, saying only that he needed to investigate troubling rumors among the allied packs, rumors of corruption and manipulation hidden beneath friendly alliances. Elena's mind raced. If Dorian truly was this Alpha King, then his silence, his distance, and his hesitation around her suddenly made sense. He was not rejecting her. He was hiding something far bigger than either of them, something that could put her in danger if it became known too soon. That night, Elena could not sleep. She sat by her window, staring out at the dark trees, turning the emissary's words over and over in her mind. Was Dorian really a king in disguise? And if he was, why had fate chosen to bind her to someone so far above her simple life? The next morning, she found Dorian near the river, alone, as he often was. She approached slowly, her heart pounding, and asked him directly if he was truly the Alpha King of the Northern Territories. For a long moment, Dorian said nothing. Then he sighed, the weight of exhaustion clear on his face, and admitted the truth. He had come to Thornwood disguised as a traveler because he suspected something was deeply wrong within several allied packs, including this one. He had felt the mate bond the moment he arrived, and it had terrified him, not because he did not want her, but because he knew that claiming her while his identity remained hidden could put her directly in the path of danger, should the corruption he suspected be real. Elena felt a mixture of relief and fear wash over her. Relief, because she finally understood why he had kept his distance. Fear, because if what he suspected was true, then something dark was happening right beneath her pack's leadership, something that could hurt people she cared about. Dorian asked her to trust him a little longer, just until he had gathered enough proof to act safely. Elena agreed, though the ache in her chest grew heavier with every day that passed, knowing the truth but unable to speak it. Meanwhile, the pressure to accept Marcus only intensified. The council announced a formal choosing ceremony, an old pack tradition where a wolf publicly declared their chosen mate in front of the entire community. Elena's name was placed at the center of it, expected to declare Marcus as her mate before the whole pack, sealing the alliance the elders so desperately wanted. The night before the ceremony, Elena barely slept. She paced her room, torn between duty and the quiet truth in her heart. She thought of Marcus's easy smile, the comfort and safety he represented, and she thought of Dorian, guarded and hidden, yet somehow the only one who ever made her feel truly seen. On the morning of the ceremony, the entire pack gathered in the clearing at the heart of Thornwood territory. Lanterns hung from the trees, and the air buzzed with anticipation. Elena stood at the center, her heart hammering, as the elders called for her to step forward and declare her chosen mate. Just as she opened her mouth to speak, a commotion broke out at the edge of the clearing. Dorian stepped forward, his usual quiet demeanor replaced by a calm, commanding presence that seemed to fill the entire space. Beside him stood two of the emissaries Elena had met by the border, along with a Thornwood elder whose face had gone pale with worry. Dorian spoke clearly, his voice carrying easily across the silent crowd. He revealed his true identity as the Alpha King of the Northern Territories, explaining that he had come disguised to investigate reports of corruption within allied packs. He announced that his investigation had uncovered proof that Marcus's family had been secretly using old pack magic to manipulate bonds and records, forcing false alliances for their own political gain. Gasps spread through the crowd. The elder beside Dorian, trembling, confirmed the evidence was real. Marcus's family had tampered with ancient bonding rituals, attempting to strengthen a false pull between Elena and Marcus in order to secure the alliance they desperately wanted, regardless of what Elena truly felt. Elena's knees went weak as the truth settled over her. The pull she had felt toward Marcus, the one she believed was fate, had been artificially created, a manipulation disguised as destiny. Meanwhile, the quiet, persistent pull she felt toward Dorian had been the real bond all along, the one true connection fate had actually intended. Marcus stood frozen, shock and shame crossing his face as his family's crimes were laid bare before the entire pack. He looked at Elena, opened his mouth as if to explain, then closed it again, unable to find words that could undo what had been done. Dorian turned to Elena, his eyes softer now than she had ever seen them. He told her, in front of everyone, that despite the danger, despite his fear of what claiming her might bring, he could not deny the bond between them any longer. He said that from the very first moment he felt her pull, he knew she was meant to stand beside him, not out of duty or politics, but because his heart had chosen her freely. Elena felt tears rise in her eyes as she stepped toward him, the weight of weeks of confusion finally lifting from her shoulders. She had spent her whole life feeling invisible, overlooked, and unimportant. Yet here, in front of her entire pack, a king had chosen her, not because she was convenient or useful, but because their bond was real. She reached for his hand, and the moment their fingers touched, the true mate bond flared to life between them, warm and unmistakable, nothing like the false pull that had clouded her judgment for so long. The crowd, still stunned from the revelations, began to murmur in awe as they witnessed the undeniable connection between their quiet visitor and the girl they had always overlooked. In the weeks that followed, Thornwood's council underwent serious changes. Marcus's family faced consequences for their manipulation, their influence stripped away as punishment for endangering the trust between packs. Marcus himself, humbled and ashamed, chose to leave Thornwood for a time, seeking to rebuild his own honor, far from the mess his family had created. Elena, meanwhile, began a new chapter of her life at Dorian's side. She traveled with him to the Northern Territories, nervous but hopeful, ready to learn what it meant to stand beside a king. The wolves there welcomed her warmly, sensing immediately the strength of the bond she shared with their leader. Though the transition was not always easy, Elena found comfort in knowing that everything between her and Dorian was real. There was no hidden magic, no manipulation, no forced destiny, only two hearts that had found each other honestly, despite disguises and secrets and fear. Looking back, Elena often thought about how close she had come to accepting a life built on lies, simply because it seemed expected and safe. She was grateful, more than words could express, that fate had given her a second pull, a quiet whisper beneath the noise, leading her toward the truth, even when everything around her pushed her elsewhere. She was no longer the invisible girl at the edge of the pack. She was chosen, fully and genuinely, by a king who saw her not as a political tool, but as the one person meant to stand beside him. And as she settled into her new life, Elena finally understood that real love did not need force or magic to feel true. It only needed patience, honesty, and the courage to listen to her own heart, even when the world tried to tell her otherwise.